There was a moment, not so long ago, when my parents, Susan and Robert, told me, "Clara, your sister Olivia's wedding is more important than your surgery. You need to reschedule it." And I did reschedule. I rescheduled my entire relationship with them instead. It's a hard thing to say, to admit, but sometimes, letting go is the only way to hold on to yourself. I'm still processing everything that went down, honestly, but I figured if anyone would get the absolute chaos and the slow burn of growing a spine, it'd be you all. For the last 3 years, I'd been living with a knee that was, well, broken. Not a little tweak from sports, but a completely torn ACL, meniscus damage, and cartilage deterioration. Every step, every single day, was a struggle. Imagine climbing stairs feeling like someone's driving nails into your kneecap. Standing for more than 20 minutes at my job as a gallery curator? Forget about it. The injury itself was dramatic enough, a hiking trip gone sideways. Slipped on wet rocks, heard a sound like a gunshot go off in my leg, and then 6 hours of park rangers carrying me down a mountain. The initial ER visit was just the beginning. After that, it was 3 years of failed physical therapy, anti-inflammatory meds that wrecked my stomach, and doctors telling me I was too young for this kind of damage. My job was understanding at first, but after all that time, the whispers started. Could I keep giving tours, climbing to the archives, doing the basic physical demands of the role without visibly limping? It was becoming a real question. Finally, after battling with my insurance company for 1.5 years, I got the green light for reconstructive surgery. The date was set, June 15th. This wasn't some random day I picked. It was carefully chosen around my work, my surgeon Dr. Morales' availability, the only opening he had for the next 4 months. After that, he was booked solid, and my insurance pre-authorization would expire. Dr. Morales was clear, miss this window, and I was looking at permanent disability by 30. The cartilage was deteriorating so fast, another few months could mean the difference between a good recovery and needing a full knee replacement before 40. I'd prepped for months. Saved up 3 months' salary because short-term disability only covered 60% of my income. My best friend, Sarah, arranged to stay with me for the first 2 weeks post-op. My apartment was a recovery station, rented knee scooter, shower chair, all the pre-op instructions meticulously followed. I even meal prepped and froze a month's worth of food, knowing I wouldn't be able to stand long enough to cook. My parents, Susan and Robert, knew all of this. I'd told them about the surgery date in February, for months in advance. I'd sent them the pre-op information, explained why this specific day mattered. I even watched my mom write it on her calendar during our Sunday dinner that February. Then, Olivia dropped her wedding bomb. My sister, Olivia. She's 25, and she's been the golden child since the day she was born. I'm not exaggerating. I have photo albums where it's 90% Olivia, maybe 10% me tucked into corners of group shots. When I got into college, they missed my celebration dinner because they were helping Olivia pick out a prom dress. When I graduated with honors, they were 30 minutes late because Olivia needed help moving furniture into her dorm. My first real job, the one at the museum I'd worked my butt off for, 2 unpaid internships, volunteer work, they took me to a chain restaurant and spent the entire dinner talking about Olivia's boyfriend, Ben. The favoritism was so obvious, even my extended family noticed. My aunt once pulled me aside at Christmas, apologizing for how my parents treated me. That's how bad it was. Olivia got engaged last November to Ben, a pharmaceutical sales rep, nice enough guy, but their relationship moved at lightning speed. Met in August, engaged by November, suddenly planning a wedding. My mom was over the moon. She started planning immediately, calling me almost daily with updates I never asked for. The original wedding date? October. I remember Mom saying it was perfect fall weather, the venue having gorgeous autumn foliage. October would have been fine. My surgery was June, I'd be mostly recovered by then. Everyone would be happy. But apparently, October wasn't good enough for Olivia. In late March, I got a group text. Not even a phone call, just a mass text to the family chat I usually muted. It was 90% Olivia updates, 10% mom guilt-tripping me about not being more involved. The text read, "Big announcement. We moved the wedding date to June 15th. The venue had a cancellation and it's our dream date. So excited. June 15th. My surgery date. The date I'd told them about. The date written on mom's calendar. The date that would decide whether I'd have functional knees for the rest of my life." I stared at that text for 10 minutes straight. My knee was throbbing from a particularly rough day at work, and I was looking at this announcement that they'd scheduled a wedding on the one day I absolutely could not be available. I called Mom immediately. She answered, cheerful and excited. "Isn't it wonderful news? The venue is this gorgeous estate with gardens and a gazebo. It was $45,000 for an October wedding, but they're giving it to us for $32,000 because it's a cancellation. Olivia's been dreaming about this place since she was a little girl." I pointed out that June 15th was my surgery date. The surgery I'd been waiting 3 years for. The surgery that determined my entire future mobility. Mom's tone shifted immediately from cheerful to annoyed. "Oh, right. Your knee thing. My knee thing. 3 years of documented disability reduced to a thing. Well, you'll have to reschedule it," she continued, like it was the most obvious solution in the world. "It's just a surgery. They do them all the time. Olivia's wedding only happens once." I explained, for what felt like the 100th time, that this wasn't a simple procedure. My surgeon was booked solid. My insurance authorization was time-sensitive. My job was already on thin ice. This wasn't optional. "Everything's optional if you prioritize correctly," Mom said, that exact phrase, like she'd read it in some self-help book. "Olivia needs you there. You're her sister. Family comes first." I tried explaining again about the medical necessity, the permanent damage, that this wasn't about wanting to attend versus not wanting to attend. This was about my literal physical ability to attend. "You're being dramatic," Mom cut me off. "I'm sure your doctor can find another date. Just call them tomorrow and explain there's a family wedding. They'll understand." She hung up before I could respond. I called Dr. Morales' office the next morning, not because I thought rescheduling was an option, but because I needed documentation that it wasn't. The scheduler was sympathetic, but firm. The next available slot was October 8th, and that was only if I could get my insurance to extend the authorization, which typically took 3 to 6 months of appeals. I sent screenshots of the conversation to my parents. Added a detailed explanation of why October wasn't viable: insurance would expire, cartilage damage would progress, a knee replacement instead of reconstruction. I included medical documentation from Dr. Morales about the urgency. Dad called that evening. Robert. He was usually the reasonable one, or so I thought. "Look, Clara, I understand you're dealing with pain, but your mother and I are paying $32,000 for this wedding. Olivia chose June 15th specifically because the venue was available and affordable. We can't ask them to change it now." I asked why they couldn't ask Olivia to change it, but they could ask me to risk permanent disability. "It's not the same thing," he said. "The wedding is already booked. The deposits are paid. Olivia's been planning for months. I'd been planning for months, too. I'd been planning for 3 years of dealing with this injury. But apparently, wedding planning trumped medical planning. You have to understand," Dad continued, "this is important to your mother. She's always dreamed of throwing Olivia a perfect wedding. You're asking her to tell Olivia that her sister's surgery is more important than her wedding day." That's exactly what I was saying. Because it was. "Just reschedule the surgery, Clara," Dad said, his tone shifting to that authoritative voice he used to end a discussion. "Be there for your sister. That's what family does. The gaslighting was impressive. They turned my medical emergency into me being selfish for not prioritizing a party. Olivia called next. I'd been avoiding her texts, but she caught me at work, and I made the mistake of answering. "Are you seriously going to ruin my wedding over a knee surgery?" she asked without preamble. "Mom told me you're refusing to reschedule." I explained again that rescheduling wasn't possible without serious medical consequences. "That's so typical of you," Olivia said. "Always making everything about yourself. This is supposed to be my special day. And you're trying to steal attention by claiming you can't reschedule some elective surgery." Elective. The word that makes every medical professional cringe. Yes, technically, reconstructive orthopedic surgery is classified as elective because it's scheduled in advance, not an emergency. But elective doesn't mean optional. It doesn't mean unnecessary. It means scheduled. "I can barely walk," I told her flatly. "I'm probably going to lose my job if I don't get this fixed." "This isn't about attention. Everything's always about you and your problems," Olivia shot back. "Do you know how much Mom and Dad are spending on this wedding? How much planning has gone into it? And you want them to throw it all away because you have a sore knee." A sore knee. 3 years of documented medical issues reduced to a sore knee. "I'm not asking them to throw anything away," I said, trying to stay calm. "I'm asking why they scheduled the wedding on a date they knew I wasn't available." "Because the world doesn't revolve around you," Olivia's voice had that edge she gets when she's gearing up for a tantrum. "You're not even in the wedding party. You're just a guest. Guests don't get to dictate the date." That stung more than I expected. Not even in the wedding party. Olivia had 4 bridesmaids, 3 of whom she'd met in the last year. But her own sister wasn't worth including. "If it's so unimportant whether I'm there or not," I said carefully, "then it shouldn't matter that I can't attend." "Of course it matters. What are people going to think when my own sister doesn't show up? It'll look terrible. You'll embarrass the whole family." There it was. The real concern wasn't about wanting me there because she valued our relationship. It was about appearances, about what people would think. "I have to go," I said. "I'm at work." "Just reschedule the stupid surgery," Olivia said before I could hang up. "Or don't bother coming to any family events ever again." I wish I could say that was an exaggeration or something said in anger. But over the next 2 weeks, that became the official family position. Mom started calling daily, leaving increasingly aggressive voicemails. Other families know how to prioritize. Other daughters would understand family comes first. "I don't know how you became so selfish." Dad sent long emails about responsibility and family obligations, how much they'd sacrificed raising 2 daughters, and how this was my chance to show I appreciated everything they'd done for me. Olivia took to social media, posting vague things about blood being thicker than water and knowing who your real family is when times get tough. Her friends, not knowing the full context, piled on. My aunt, the one who'd apologized for my parents' favoritism at Christmas, called me after seeing Olivia's posts. "Clara, what's going on? Your mother's telling everyone you're boycotting the wedding out of jealousy." I explained the whole situation, the surgery, the conflict, the impossibility of rescheduling without medical consequences. "That's ridiculous," she said immediately. "You need to do what's right for your health. They're being completely unreasonable." It was validating to hear, but it didn't change anything. My parents had made their position clear. Family meant showing up when they wanted me to show up, regardless of personal cost. The final straw came 3 weeks before both the surgery and the wedding. I was having a particularly bad knee day. The weather had shifted and brought rain, which always made the joints stiffen and ache. I'd called out of work because I literally couldn't put weight on my leg without seeing stars. I was sitting at home with ice packs and heating pads, trying to find a position that didn't hurt, when my parents showed up unannounced. Mom had a key to my apartment from when I'd had a minor kitchen fire 2 years ago and needed her to let the repair people in. I'd never asked for it back. Big mistake. They walked in while I was on the couch, knee elevated, looking probably as miserable as I felt. "We need to talk," Dad said, his voice stern. Mom sat in my armchair, crossing her arms. "This has gone on long enough. You're being incredibly selfish, and it needs to stop." I was in too much pain to argue. Just asked what they wanted. "We want you to do the right thing," Mom said. "We want you to reschedule your surgery and come to your sister's wedding. We want you to stop being stubborn and think about someone other than yourself for once." I pointed out I was thinking about my future, my health, my ability to work and support myself. "You'll figure something out," Dad said dismissively. "You always do. You're resourceful. But Olivia only gets married once, and she needs her family there." The irony of calling me resourceful while asking me to sacrifice my mobility wasn't lost on me. I'd always been the one who figured things out because I'd never had the support Olivia got. "I already rescheduled everything in my life for this surgery," I said quietly. "Work, finances, recovery arrangements. I can't just move it." "Of course you can," Mom insisted. "You just don't want to. You've always been jealous of Olivia getting attention. And now you're using this surgery as an excuse to make her wedding day about you." Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the pain. Maybe it was 3 years of struggling while they dismissed my injury as a thing and a sore knee. Maybe it was a lifetime of being second place to Olivia. "Get out," I said. They looked shocked. I never talked back, never set boundaries, never prioritized myself. "Excuse me?" Mom said. "Get out of my apartment. Give me back my key. Leave." "You can't be serious," Dad started. "I'm completely serious. You came into my home while I'm in pain to tell me I'm selfish for not wanting to be disabled for the rest of my life. You've made it clear what I'm worth to this family. Now leave." Mom stood up, face red. "If you don't come to that wedding, don't bother coming to any family events ever again. We'll be done. No more Sunday dinners, no more holidays, no more help when you need it. You'll be dead to us." "Understood," I said. "Key now." She threw my apartment key on the coffee table and stormed out. Dad followed without another word. After they left, I sat there for probably an hour, just staring at the key. They'd actually said it. The ultimatum, the wedding or the family? I chose my knees. I called Sarah that night and told her everything. She'd been my best friend since college, and she'd witnessed years of my family's mistreatment. She wasn't surprised, just angry on my behalf. "You know this is insane, right?" she said, like, clinically insane behavior. "They're threatening to disown you over not attending a party." "It's not just a party to them," I said, even though I was defending people who'd just threatened me. "It shouldn't be just a surgery to them either," Sarah pointed out. "They're choosing a dress and a cake over their daughter's ability to walk. That's not normal." She was right. I knew she was right, but it still hurt. The surgery went ahead as scheduled on June 15th. Sarah drove me to the hospital at 5 in the morning, held my hand during pre-op, and was there when I woke up, groggy and in pain, asking if it went okay. Dr. Morales said the surgery went well, but the damage was worse than the imaging had shown. He'd had to do more extensive cartilage work. Recovery would be longer and harder than anticipated, maybe 8 months instead of 6. "Good thing you didn't wait any longer," he told me later. "Another few months and we'd have been looking at permanent damage. You made the right call getting this done when you did." The right call. That phrase echoed in my head during the painful first weeks of recovery. My phone was silent. No calls from my parents asking how the surgery went. No texts from Olivia. No one checking if I was okay or needed anything. Sarah moved into my apartment for 2 weeks, as planned. She handled medication schedules, helped me to the bathroom, made food, kept me from going stir-crazy. "Have they called?" she asked on day 3. I shook my head. They hadn't. I'd had major surgery, and my family hadn't bothered to check if I'd survived it. Meanwhile, my social media feeds filled with wedding photos. Olivia in a massive white dress, Mom crying happy tears, Dad walking her down the aisle. The venue was indeed gorgeous. All gardens and gazebos and fairy lights. The photos looked like something out of a magazine. Olivia glowing, Ben looking dapper, guests dancing and laughing. It looked perfect, like a dream wedding. None of the photos showed me, obviously, because I wasn't there. I was home with a reconstructed knee, learning to navigate my apartment on crutches, trying not to think about the fact that my entire family had written me off. A few relatives reached out. My aunt sent flowers and a card, thinking of you during recovery. You made the right choice, a couple of cousins texted, asking how I was doing and mentioning they'd heard about the family drama. But from my parents? Nothing. From Olivia? Silence. The recovery was brutal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The first month was constant pain management, physical exercises 3 times a day, struggling to regain any kind of mobility. My job was understanding about the extended timeline, but I could tell they were concerned about when I'd be able to return to full duties. Sarah helped as much as she could, but she had her own life. After 2 weeks, she had to go back to her place, though she checked in daily and came over several times a week. Month 2 was slightly better. I could put partial weight on the leg with crutches. Started outpatient physical therapy. The pain was more manageable, but I was still basically homebound, dependent on others for groceries, errands, anything that required 2 functional legs. Month 3, I graduated to a cane and could do more for myself. Started working from home part-time, doing research and writing for the museum's educational programs. Still couldn't stand for long periods or navigate stairs. Well, but life was becoming more normal. Through all of it, not a single word from my family. I thought about reaching out, thought about calling to explain again why I'd chosen the surgery, why it had been necessary, why I'd had to prioritize my health. But every time I picked up the phone, I remembered Mom's words, "You'll be dead to us." They'd made their choice. I'd made mine, and I was learning to live with the consequences. What I didn't know was that they were about to face consequences of their own. 6 months post-surgery, I was doing pretty well. The knee was functional. It still got sore if I overdid it, but I was back at work full-time. I could walk through galleries without limping. I could climb stairs to the archives without wanting to cry. I could have a normal life. My job security was back. My boss even mentioned they were impressed with my determination and were considering me for a coordinator position opening up in the new year. Life was honestly pretty good. I'd built a routine that didn't include my family. Sunday dinners were replaced with brunch with Sarah and a few other friends. Holidays were spent with people who actually wanted me around. It hurt less than I expected. Or maybe it hurt the same amount, but I was getting used to it. Then my phone rang. Mom's number. First contact in 6 months. I stared at the screen for 3 rings before answering. "Hello." "Hi honey," Mom said, her voice sugary sweet, the tone she used when she wanted something. "How are you? How's your knee?" 6 months. 6 months of silence. And now she wanted to know about my knee. "It's fine," I said cautiously. "Surgery was successful. I'm back at work." "That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear it." I knew everything would work out. The casual dismissiveness was staggering. Like my successful recovery was inevitable and not the result of months of painful rehabilitation that she'd known nothing about because she'd chosen not to know. "What do you need, Mom? Can't I just call to check on my daughter? You haven't checked on me in 6 months." Silence on her end, then, well, things have been busy with Olivia settling into married life. And what do you need? I repeated. She sighed. Fine. I need to ask you for a favor. Your father and I are in a difficult situation financially, she continued. There were some unexpected expenses with the wedding that went over budget, and now we're dealing with some medical bills, and things are tight. We need to borrow some money to cover things until we can get back on our feet. I let that sink in for a moment. They needed money. 6 months after threatening to disown me, after skipping my surgery, after choosing a party over their daughter's health, they needed money. How much? I asked. $15,000, Mom said quickly. Just temporarily. We'll pay you back as soon as we can. Your father's bonus comes in December, so probably by the new year, $15,000. That was more than half what I'd saved for my surgery and recovery. Money I'd scraped together through years of careful budgeting and overtime. Medical bills? I asked. Who's sick? Your father had to have an emergency procedure, Mom said. Nothing life-threatening, but it wasn't covered entirely by insurance. Between that and the wedding going over budget, we're stretched thin. Dad had a medical procedure, an emergency one. And they were calling me for money. When was this procedure? I asked. 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. They had known for 3 weeks that they needed money. And they'd waited until now to call. Why me? I asked. Why not ask Olivia and Ben? Or borrow from the bank? Olivia and Ben are dealing with their own expenses, setting up their household, and the bank, our credit isn't great right now with the wedding expenses. We thought family would be easier. Family. The word they'd threatened to revoke 6 months ago. I need to think about it, I said. What's there to think about? Mom's voice shifted from sweet to sharp. We're your parents. We need help. That's what family does for each other. I'll call you back, I said, and hung up before she could argue. I sat on my couch, knee aching slightly from a long day at work, and thought about everything that had happened. They'd threatened to disown me for choosing my health. Had ignored me through surgery and months of recovery. Hadn't checked on me once to see if I was okay, if the surgery was successful, if I needed anything. And now they needed money. So, suddenly, I was family again. I called Sarah, told her about the conversation. You're not actually considering giving them money, right? She asked. Please tell me you're not considering it. I don't know, I admitted. He's still my father. If he needs medical care. They didn't care about your medical care, Sarah interrupted. They told you to risk permanent disability for a party. They don't get to play the family card now that they need something. She was right. I knew she was right. But there was this voice in my head, that childhood conditioning about family obligations and doing the right thing. What would you do? I asked her. I'd tell them to reschedule their bills. That made me laugh despite everything. Sarah had always been good at cutting through emotional manipulation with pure logic. I spent the next day thinking about it. Went to work, gave a tour to a school group, processed some new acquisitions for the collection. Normal stuff. But my mind kept circling back to that phone call. They needed money. I had money. But giving it to them felt like validating everything they'd done. Like saying their mistreatment of me was acceptable as long as I was still useful. Mom called again that evening. Have you made a decision? I need more information, I said. What was the emergency procedure? Does it matter? Yes. She sighed, annoyed. Fine. Your father needed kidney stone surgery. It was very painful and required immediate intervention. Kidney stone surgery? Painful, yes, but not life-threatening. Not something that would cause permanent disability if delayed. Elective, in the medical terminology they'd used against me. And you need exactly $15,000? Yes, that's what we're short after insurance and other expenses. When's it due? The hospital wants payment within 30 days or they'll send it to collections. 30 days. They had 30 days to figure it out. Can't you set up a payment plan with the hospital? We tried. They're not being flexible. We need the money. What about a personal loan? I told you our credit isn't great right now. Please stop asking questions and just help us. That tone, the one that said I was being difficult for wanting basic information before handing over $15,000. I'll think about it, I said. What's there to think about? Mom's voice rose. This is your father's health. How can you be so cold? I had major surgery 6 months ago, I said quietly. Reconstructive surgery that determined whether I'd be disabled for the rest of my life. You didn't call once to check on me. You didn't ask how I was doing or if I needed anything. You chose a party over my health. Now you're asking me to choose your financial problems over my financial security. That's completely different, Mom said immediately. You were being selfish about the wedding. This is a real emergency. My surgery was a real emergency. It wasn't the same thing. Olivia's wedding was important, and my ability to walk wasn't. Silence. Then, are you going to help us or not? I took a breath. Thought about all those months of recovery, the pain, the struggle, the isolation. Thought about them dancing at a wedding while I learned to walk again. Thought about the ultimatum, the threats, the complete dismissal of my needs. No, I said. I'm not going to help you. What? I'm not giving you money. You told me to reschedule my surgery. I'm telling you to reschedule your bills. Figure it out like I had to figure everything out on my own. You can't be serious. Mom said, voice shaking. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? Because from where I'm sitting, you spent $32,000 on Olivia's wedding, but couldn't be bothered to ask how my surgery went. We raised you. We gave you everything. You gave Olivia everything, I corrected. I was an afterthought. And that's fine. I've made peace with it. But you don't get to treat me like I'm not family and then expect me to act like family when it's convenient for you. If you don't help us, we're done, Mom said, voice cold. This is your last chance. You already told me we were done 6 months ago, I said. Nothing's changed. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. Then I blocked her number, blocked Dad's number, blocked Olivia's number, blocked every family member who'd sided with them or ignored what had happened. The phone rang twice more from unknown numbers. I didn't answer. Sarah called an hour later. So, what happened? I said no. Good. How do you feel? Honestly? Free. And I did. For the first time in 6 months, maybe for the first time in my whole life, I felt like I'd actually stood up for myself, set a boundary, and enforced it, chosen my own well-being over their demands. The next week was chaos I didn't see directly because I'd blocked everyone. But my aunt called from her number I hadn't blocked yet. Your mother is losing her mind, she reported. She's calling everyone, saying you refused to help your father with emergency medical bills. Making you sound like a monster. He can set up a payment plan with the hospital, I said. They're not going to sue him over $15,000 in medical debt. I know that. You know that. But she's spinning this into a huge drama about ungrateful children and family betrayal. She told me I'd be dead to them if I chose surgery over the wedding. I know. And I think you did the right thing. I just wanted to warn you that she's on a campaign to turn the whole family against you. Let her, I said. Anyone who believes her version without asking mine isn't worth having in my life anyway. My aunt was quiet for a moment. You sound different, she said. Stronger. I had to be. They made sure of that. A few cousins reached out, ones who'd heard Mom's version and wanted mine. I explained, calmly and clearly. Sent screenshots of the pre-surgery text I'd sent my parents in February, the medical documentation from Dr. Morales, the timeline showing they'd known about my surgery for 4 months before scheduling the wedding on the same day. Some believed me, some didn't care. Either way, I made peace with all of it. Olivia tried calling from Ben's phone. I answered that one time just to make my position clear. You're really not going to help them? She asked. Over a wedding? Over you all choosing a wedding over my health, I corrected. And then ghosting me for 6 months, and then only contacting me when you needed money. Family helps family. You're right. Family does help family. When my sister was getting married, I wanted to be there, but I physically couldn't because I was having major surgery. Family would have understood that. Family would have chosen a different date, or at least checked on me afterward. You all made it clear I'm not really family unless I'm useful to you. That's not fair. Neither was telling me to reschedule surgery that determined whether I'd be disabled for life. It wasn't that serious. Yes, it was. You just didn't care. I hung up. Blocked that number too. Sarah came over that weekend with wine and takeout. We sat on my couch, the same couch where I'd spent months recovering alone. And she asked how I was really doing. Better than expected, I said. Honestly, I thought I'd feel guilty, like I was being as bad as them by refusing to help. But I don't. They made their choice. They told me what I was worth to them. I'm just respecting their decision. What do you think they'll do? I don't know. Dad will probably set up a payment plan with the hospital like a normal person. Mom will probably complain to everyone who will listen. Olivia will go on with her newlywed life, and I'll keep building the life I have here. Without them. Without them. Sarah raised her glass. To family we choose instead of family we're born into. We clinked glasses. My knee was sore from a long day at work. But it was a normal sore, not the debilitating pain I'd lived with for 3 years. I could walk. I could work. I could have a life. That's what I'd chosen. And 6 months later, faced with their crisis, I'd chosen it again. 3 months after the phone calls stopped, I got a letter in the mail, not from my parents directly, but from an attorney. For a moment, my stomach dropped, thinking they were suing me for the money. But it wasn't that. It was a formal notice that they had added me back into their will. Apparently, their attorney had advised them that disinheriting a child could lead to legal challenges and estate complications. So, I was back in, but with a significantly reduced share compared to Olivia. She'd get the house and most of the assets. I'd get a small cash amount, maybe $20,000. Sarah looked at the letter and laughed. They're bribing you from beyond the grave. That's actually impressive. I don't want their money, I said. Good, but take it if they die and donate it to a medical charity or something. Spite. Donations are the best donations. The thought made me smile. Life went on. I got that promotion at work, became the new educational programs coordinator, started planning an exhibit about overcoming physical challenges, inspired partly by my own experience. Made new friends, went on some dates, built a life that had nothing to do with my family of origin. My knee never fully stopped hurting. Dr. Morales had warned me that even with successful surgery, I'd probably have some level of chronic pain and stiffness, but it was manageable. I could work, exercise, live normally. That's all I'd wanted. A year after the surgery, almost to the day, I was leading a tour through the museum when I saw my mother standing at the edge of the group, just watching. Not participating, not trying to talk to me, just there. I finished the tour professionally, ignoring her presence. After the group dispersed, she approached. "Your knee looks better," she said. "You're not limping." "The surgery was successful," I said neutrally. "Is there something you need?" "I wanted to see how you were doing." "I'm fine." "The exhibit on physical challenges, that's yours, isn't it?" "I saw your name listed as coordinator." "Yes." We stood there in the gallery, surrounded by artifacts and information panels about human resilience and adaptation. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "I owe you an apology," Mom said finally. "We handled everything wrong. The wedding, the surgery, all of it. We prioritized the wrong things." I waited. She seemed to expect me to immediately forgive her, to say it was okay, to fall back into old patterns. "I was in pain for 3 years," I said instead. "The surgery could have prevented permanent damage if I'd gotten it sooner, but I waited because of insurance approval processes and work schedules and trying to time it right. When I finally got approval and a surgery date, you asked me to risk everything for a party." "It wasn't just a party." "It was," I interrupted. "It was a party. It was an expensive, elaborate party, but just a party. My surgery was my health, my career, my future. And you chose the party." Mom's eyes watered. "I know I was wrong. You told me I'd be dead to you if I didn't come to the wedding." I was angry. "You were honest. That's what I was worth to you. So, I believed you." "But you wouldn't even help when your father needed medical care," she said, defensive edge creeping back in. "He needed money, not medical care. Medical care was available to him through payment plans. You wanted me to hand over money I'd saved through years of work because you overspent on Olivia's wedding. We're your parents. You're people who gave birth to me and raised me. That doesn't mean I owe you access to my bank account, especially after you made it clear I wasn't worth your time when I needed you." Mom straightened her shoulders. "I came here to apologize and try to rebuild our relationship." "I appreciate the apology," I said, "but I don't want to rebuild the relationship. I spent my whole life trying to earn love and approval that was only given to Olivia. I'm done trying. I have people in my life now who actually value me. I don't need the stress of wondering when I'll be second priority again. You're my daughter, and you made it clear what that meant. I'm respecting your decision." I walked away, back to my office where I had work to do on an exhibit about strength and resilience. Left her standing in the gallery. She didn't follow. Didn't call again. I think she finally understood that I meant what I said. Sarah called that evening asking how I was doing. I told her about the museum encounter. "How do you feel?" she asked. Like I finally closed a door that should have been closed a year ago. "Good." "You want company?" "Always." She came over with Thai food, and we watched terrible reality TV. The kind where people make dramatic problems out of nothing. It was mindless and perfect. My knee ached a little that night, same as it did most nights. But I had pain medication that worked. I had a job I loved. I had friends who actually cared about me. I had a life built on my own terms, not dictated by family obligation and one-sided loyalty. That's what I'd chosen on June 15th when I went into surgery instead of a wedding. And every day since, I'd kept choosing it, choosing myself, my health, my future, my peace. They'd told me to reschedule my surgery. Instead, I'd rescheduled my entire relationship with them. Turns out that was the best decision I ever made. My knee works now. I can walk without debilitating pain. I can work full days. I can climb stairs. I can have a normal life. And I can do all of that without a family who only valued me when I was useful to them. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is choose your own well-being over other people's expectations. Even when those people are family. Especially when those people are family. My surgery was June 15th. The wedding was June 15th. I made my choice. They made theirs. And we all have to live with the consequences. How do you navigate those moments when family asks you to sacrifice your well-being for their convenience?